Okay, so we just released our latest Unreal Engine asset, which is Combat AI System. So this is a tutorial series dedicated on that asset about its discussing about its architecture, how we implemented our features inside the Combat AI system, and how you can use it in your project. Right. So our first session is just an introduction about Combat AI system, mainly targeting its discussing about its core architecture and how to migrate into your project and how to implement it your features inside your game by using our Combat AI system. Right. So the content as follows. First, we are going to discuss a very brief into its project structure, and we are going to migrate Combat AI system to your own project, and then we'll go in depth about its core blueprints and its implementations. And after that, we are going to move its main components and subsystems. So mainly we have like 6 different subsystems within our Combat AI system. Each has been implemented as a dedicated actor component that can be easily pluggable and configurable. So obviously we have Combat AI system as actor component, and similarly to control the animations and locomotion behaviors, we have locomotion system. Plus, in order to handle the weapons and other inventory stuffs, we have weapon system and inventory system. And in order to handle actor specific configurations such as XP levels, health, and damage related stuff, we have actor profile system. And in order to handle the user interface, we have user interface system. After that, we are going to discuss about the manager component that we have been implemented in our Combat AI system. So these are sort of like a global component that handle the entire context of your level at runtime, right? So we have 3 managers. Basically, we have level manager, NPC manager, and time of day manager, right? So let's go through each of these topics one by one at the implementation level, right? So this is the project. So when you freshly download and open the project, it would look like this. Basically, it starts with a showcase level, and all the project files has been organized inside this root directory, which is Combat AI system. So if you take a quick look on the project structure, basically we have set of asset guidelines that need to be enabled when you are using this project. So if you look at the default asset guidelines, you just need to enable the animation warping in your plugin section. So basically, when you open up your project at the very first time, if you haven't enabled this plugin, it will ask to enable this one. So you can simply enable animation warping plugin and restart the engine. So all the stuffs will be works as usual, right? So when we actually migrate in this asset to our own project, we'll see how we can do that there, right? Then we have some audio configurations, and in order to prototype the level, we have implemented some blockouts. So you can easily like drag and drop these into your level and start prototyping your level like this. Then we have our core blueprints folder, where most of our internal logic resides inside this folder, right? So as I described in the presentation, we have set of subsystems that has been implemented as actor component, and we have set of managers which are sort of global context handlers. In addition to that, we have like components like explosive barrels and lights, some NPC spawners, things like that, right? So there are lots to discuss about these blueprints, and I will go through each and every individual stuff in the later part of the series, right? So this is just to give a brief idea about the project structure, right? And then we have like a dedicated camera manager to handle the third person camera of the player character. And when it comes to the characters, we have implemented a very sophisticated animation locomotion system Actually, this is driven by a data table. So you can go check out the data tables locomotion directory. So here you can see, like, for each locomotion, for each specific feature, we have implemented a data record, and that data record actually implements set of animations that need to be run at the character at the animation blueprint, right? And additionally, we have blueprints dedicated for NPCs and players. So player is just a player base, but for NPCs actually we have like very complex setup. Actually, it's not complex, but at the component wise we have very descriptive setup, right? So we have like behavior trees as DI components, and EQs to pathfinding, and some services and tasks as the utilities that can be reusable at the behavior trees, and the core as a core component, the NPC AI controller, which is sort of a brain component of the NPC AIs. Right, so that's the characters, and obviously we have data. We have like set of enumerations, structures, and data tables. So data tables in the sense like we have dedicated a pre-configured setup for our locomotions, actor profiles, cameras, time of the day, and user interface. Right? So we'll go through each of these stuff later on when we're discussing those specific parts. And just to demonstrate the asset features, we have set up some levels as well. So you can go check out the maps folder. So we have like multiple different levels, each dedicated to explaining a specific feature in the asset, right? And yeah, so I think those are the core components, and other stuffs are pretty much generic stuff. So we have like input mappings, which use the new enhanced input mapping system used at the Unreal Engine 5. And we have set of materials, micro systems, meshes, textures, and some of the UI features. Right. So that's the brief introduction about the core blueprints and the core project structure, right? So I haven't go through each of them individually in detail, but this is sort of like a brief overview, right? So now, in order to migrate the project, I have created a sample empty project as well. So this is just the empty project that I created using this specific Unreal Engine version, Unreal Engine 5.3. Actually, our Combat AI system base sample project is also developed using Unreal Engine 5.3. Therefore, you can use our project directly any other version prior to this specific version, right? It can be 5.3, 5.4, 5.5, 5.6, any upper version like that, right? Okay, so currently this project doesn't have anything. It's simply a empty level with the initial configurations. So let's migrate our project to there. So now to migrate, actually it's quite simple. All you have to do is simply right click on it and migrate, and it will ask you to select whatever the components that you need to be migrated. So in our case, actually we need to migrate everything inside this Combat AI system. So make sure this tick is enabled at your root directory, so everything will be migrated, right? So let's click OK, and it will ask you to select the directory that need to be migrated. So in my case, my project resides on desktop, so this is my project. So if I go there and go inside the content folder and simply select this folder, right? So make sure it is the content folder, otherwise your migration will not work as it's intended, right? So let's select this folder and it will start migrating assets. Right, so the migration is now almost complete. It will take some time. Right. So now the migration has been done. So if I go to my project, my sample project, you can see the Combat AI system is now there, right? But additionally to these files, you need to migrate some of the configurations as well at the project settings. So I will show you how to migrate those stuff as well. So if you open up your project settings at your sample Combat AI system base project, here I have added some gameplay tags. So the first thing actually you need to migrate is these gameplay tags, because if you check out this tag list, we have this tag called DOT, which will be actually used at our one of the behavior trees, right? So in order to work it properly, actually you need to set up this tag in your project as well. So basically there are two approaches. Either you can go to your sample project and add this tag there, or what you can do is you can simply export this to a configuration file and import it at your own project. So I'm going to follow the second approach, but either way would be fine. Right, so I'm going to export it to desktop, save it. So now the settings has been exported, and I can go to my project and I'll open the project settings there and go to gameplay text section, and let's import it. So when you are importing, you have to select whatever the tags that you have been exported from your Combat AI base project. Okay, so now it has been imported, but currently nothing will be shown because you have to restart the engine, right? But for now it would be fine. And once we added all the other configurations, let's restart the engine. Okay, so and then if I go back to my Combat AI system base project, I have one remaining configuration that need to be migrated, which is collisions. So if you go to the collisions sections, actually I have added an object channel called navigation. By default its response is ignored. So you can migrate these configurations to your own project as well. Again, there are two approaches. Either you can set up this object channel in your base project by giving the exact same name and the exact same default response as ignored, or you can simply export this to a configuration file and import it to your own project, right? So I'm going to do the second approach. I'm going to follow the second approach. Yeah. So I just export the settings, and let's go to my own project, go to the collision section, and let's import it, right? So make sure it's this collision. Okay, again you can see nothing is visible yet because we have to restart the engine, right? So before restart the engine, actually let's go to the asset guidelines folder and open that out as well. So soon after you open the assets, you can see this message that pop out, right? It says there are some missing plugins that need to be enabled, which is this animation warping, right? So in your sample project, if you haven't enabled this plugin by default, it will ask you to enable it. So simply click enable missing. So it will be enabled. Right. Now, your engine would ask to restart your project, but in case if it haven't asked to restart, just simply close it and start it again. Right? So in my scenario, I'll simply restart now. Right, so it's restarting. Okay, it has been restarted. Now, first of all, let's go to our project settings and check whether our exported configurations or imported configurations actually initialize properly. So the first thing that I was exported was this gameplay tags. So if I go to the gameplay tags, now you can see inside the AI category, we have this duty as the as a child or inherited gameplay tag, right? Or nested gameplay tag, right? So our first configuration was fine, and let's go to the collision. Okay, so it is also there, right? So navigation and the default response channel is ignored, right? So everything is fine, and let's go and check the plugins as well. So if you remember, like we just enabled the animation warping, so let's check whether it is also there or not. Yeah, so animation warping plugin has been enabled, which is great, right? So I think everything is set up properly. Now we can go and check one of the showcase level whether the asset working properly or not, to check whether the asset working properly or not. So I would recommend to use this showcase level, but you can use either of them. But yeah, I will open this map showcase level. Okay. So no errors has been pop out. These are some warnings, which means I guess everything works properly. So let's play test it as well. Okay, so you can see actually it is working, but our character is not appearing on the level. It is obvious because by default, if you go and check out the world settings, it is looking for a game mode which is globally applicable in your project settings, right? So I haven't actually overridden any sort of stuff at my own levels. Therefore, it's looking for a global game mode. But if you look at the project settings, maps and modes, currently the default game mode is game mode base, which means it doesn't aware of our own game mode, right? But if you look at the blueprints game base folder, this is the game mode that I need to plug, right? Because inside this game mode, it clearly specify what is the play controller class, what is the default pawn class, and what is the HUD class, right? So these stuff will be instantiated whenever we properly set up our game mode, right? So let's go to the project settings, maps and modes, and instead of this game mode base, let's select this BP Combat AI System game mode, right? But in your case, if you already have a game mode, then make sure to replace these play controllers, HUDs, and player base just for playtesting. And later on, actually, you can get the required component out of these instances and do the proper modifications, right? But for now, let's simply plug this game mode, so we will be able to actually playtest the game, right? So I will playtest it using this new editor mode. So it will open up like this. Okay. Now you can see actually we can switch the weapons. So we can fire the weapon, right? And the enemy. Okay. So the help panel is there you to figure out what are the controllers, right? And if you press tab, actually it will open up the pause menu as well. So you can go check out the demo levels by using this UI. So I have added many examples to explain the features. So for example, we can go to one of these, I don't know, maybe like let's say team deathmatch example. Visualize how the team deathmatch works in front of us. And if you go to another level, maybe time of day example, it will show actually how the time of day system works in our game, right? Yeah, so so we have actually successfully migrated our project Combat AI system to our own project, and it is working fine. Right, now let's go briefly about some of the components at the Combat AI system. So I would like to start with the Combat AI system actor component. So basically this is the root component that will be used at our NPCs, right? So it will basically initialize certain stuff for us, for our NPCs, such as this heads up alert and perception alerts and attack modes, commands, things like that, right? So all the implementation details are there. I have a lot of functions dedicated to handle each of these functionalities. So let's go through these functions later on when we are actually explaining the AI features in the later part of the series. But for now, just remember we have several functions that handle each and every individual functionality. Plus, this component can be easily configurable. So all the configurable attributes are at this setup category, right? So if you go to the class defaults under setup, it will show what are the configurations that we can do at our component level, right? But obviously you don't need to do the configurations manually on the component level itself, but you can go to the inherited character, which is NPC base, and there if you click the Combat AI system actor component, here you can configure any of these attributes, right? Okay, so that's the first component, which is Combat AI system. And likewise, you can see like we have added multiple different components there. And next, let's go and check maybe locomotion system. So locomotion system basically handle the locomotion features of our character. So basically it's state what is the default anim set that we are going to use, and what is the anim set data table that we are going to consider, and what is the default movement mode and rotation mode, right? So I think the best way to explain this is I'll go to player character again, and inside there you can see the locomotion system is there, right? So by default the anim set is unarmed, and if you go and check out this data table, unarmed means basically the default state, right? But if you switch it to pistol state, then the character's animation will be switched to pistol, right? So I can maybe do that here. So if I change it to pistol and play it again, now you can actually quickly see that small snap happened for the pistol, but it has been again overridden by the weapon that we have been plugged. But ideally it will visualize some animation like this. Okay, so it actually happens this anim set will be overridden at our weapon class levels itself, right? Because you can see in our weapon system we can plug multiple different weapons. So by default the weapon is BP unarmed, so it will actually override that state, right? So I know this would be tricky, but I will explain this stuff later. Just for the demonstration of the animation overridden, I will modify it at here, so you will see actually what will happen. So if I play test now you can see actually yeah, even at the unarmed state, no, not here actually, you have to go, yeah, you can actually change this one to pistol, and now you can see at the unarmed state we have the pistol animation that is being played, right? So anyway, I will switch it back to unarmed, so it will go back to unarmed, right? So the point is basically these tags or these names will be referring this data table 4 anim sets, and based on the tag or name that you provided there, it will drive the necessary animations for us, right, by using this BPC locomotion system actor component, right. And you can see like by default our movement mode is jog, but if I switch to walk, and you can see now our default movement mode is walking, right. And if I switch it to crouch, now our default movement mode is crouch, right. So I'll go back to jog. Now it's jogging. And this rotation mode also, we have two different rotation modes. We have first one is strafing and another one is forward facing. So strafing means basically when you rotate your camera alongside your actor, actually only the camera is rotating and your character is right. But if you change it to the forward facing mode, you can see whenever you rotate the camera, your character is also rotated into that specific direction, right. But I think strafing mode would be fine as the default rotation mode. Okay, so you can see like we can easily configure these stuff even at our component level or at our character instance level, right. Either would be fine. The only difference is if you make the changes at your component level, all the changes will be globally applicable for all the inherited actors. But if you change these configurations at the instance level, then those changes will be only applied to that specific instance, right. So in our case, it's play. Okay, that's the second component. And additionally, we have actor profile system. So this is another important component. So you can see all the characters. If you go into the character base, all the characters actually implement these actor profile systems as an instance. So there are like multiple different configurations that you can do. The obvious one is basically the health, and we have like set of tags and some team configurations. So actually you can specify what's the team that the character belongs to, and some XP levels and ranks, and some debug configurations, and some default effect classes such as the hit effects and death effects and things like that, right. So we can go through these stuff in detail later on, but for now just remember the actor profile system holds a context related to these specific attributes, right. Okay, and then we have weapon system. So this is a quite straightforward component. Basically this will holds whatever the weapons that we currently equipped in our level for each character, right. For example, if you go and check out the character base, so it instantiate this BPC weapon system instance at the component level, component hierarchy. So by default, all the characters will be having this default weapon, which is BP unarmed, right. But if you switch it back to a different weapon, it will be that default weapon, right. So just to demonstrate, like I can go to the player base and maybe inside the weapon system. Here you can see since this is a child class of the character base, I can do some modifications at my child instance level. So here you can see I added 3 different weapons, right. So obviously the unarmed will be there, which is the default weapon, and the pistol and the rifle, right. So the weapon switching will be done based on the weapon index that we provide as the default weapon slot. So you can see currently it's 0, which means by default the default weapon would be unarmed. But let's say if I switch it to 1, you can see by default now I have the pistol, right. And if I switch it to 2, then the default weapon would be rifle, right. But I think by default having unarmed weapon would be enough as the default weapon slot. Okay, and then we have inventory system as well. But I think currently I haven't used this component at any of our characters because I'm not going to actually implementing a specific inventory system for our combat AI system currently. But later on actually we can extend its features, and most of the time like a lot of games has an inventory system. So just to have sort of a area to implement those logics, I have implemented this component as well. So in your scenario you may have your own custom inventory system, so you can add your logic there, or later on in a future versions we will try to implement inventory system within our combat AI system as well. So in order to do those stuff, we have this inventory system actor component. And finally, we have VPC user interface actor component, which is basically handle the user interface stuff, right? So this component will not be instantiated at our character level, right? Because each character doesn't have its own UI. So the UI is basically sort of a singleton entity that will instantiated only once at the player. So therefore, we implemented the VPC user interface system at our HUD instance, right? So you can go check out the blueprints, gameplays, and combat AI system HUD. So here at the component hierarchy, you can see we have plugged the VPC user interface system, right? So there actually you can do multiple different configurations, but most importantly, the configurations are targeted about configuring these help widget, right? So such as these input mappings that we are used, and some of debug context that we used, right? So this stuff actually dynamically instantiate at our HUD. So if you look at the help panel, you can see all the details are there. Okay. In addition to that, actually this user interface system handle all the other widgets exist on the game, such as help widget, notification, and the weapon HUD, crosshair, and the core HUD interface, pause menus, quiet menus, and all the other stuff, right? So this is sort of like a global context handler to handle all the user interface related logics. Okay. So again, you may have your own user interface system or any other third-party user interface system. So you can easily plug that component to your HUD, or you can even modify our own component. Right? Okay, so I think those are the core components that I want to discuss. And finally, we can move to managers. Again, the managers are sort of global context handlers. So if you look at your levels, we have added these 3 managers for each our levels, right? So the level manager is basically handle the overall level management stuff, and the NPC management basically handle all the NPC logics or spawns or other necessary optimization related stuff, and the TOD manager is basically handle the time of the day, right? Okay, so let's go through each of these one by one. But first I will close the tabs that have been already open, right? Okay, so now if I go to BP level manager, basically you can see it's basically handles, or basically it's check what are the spline paths that we have in our level, bounding box in our level, point of interest in our level, and some alarm towers or any other stations that we have in our level, right? So these stuff will be discussed in the later part of the series, but most of the time just remember, like, these stuff are sort of like static element in our game that dedicated for each specific activity, right? So for example, like spline path could be a path where the NPC is used to patrolling in your level, right? And POI could be a specific point of interest in your level, maybe a bunker, or maybe a military base, or maybe I don't know, maybe like a enemy base camp or something like that. So level manager basically handle those entities that exist in your level, which is this component. And we have BP NPC manager. As the name intended, it will handle the NPCs in your level, right? So actually there are configurable assets as well, such as this configure how many maximum simultaneous shooters that can attack for a specific enemy, and the search radius stuff, the reinforcement amounts, things like that. Okay? So we'll go through this stuff in the later part when we are discussing the reinforcement and other enemy variations. But keep in mind that this will globally handle all the NPCs spawned in your level. And finally, we have this time of day manager. Again, it sort of handle the time of the day, right? So you can see like at the setup section, you can either enable the dynamic time of day or not, or what is the time of day configuration that you are using in your data table, and the current time and the timestamp, right? So if you go look into this time of day data table, basically it's a configurable time of day system where you can actually set up each and every individual elements based on your needs, right? So for example, like I have added these standard configurations for the daytime and the nighttime with these directional light and fog and atmosphere setups. So similarly, in your level, based on your requirement, you can configure or you can add multiple different time of day configurations inside this table. And once you add those records in your table, you can go to your level and click on this TOD manager, go to details, and here you can see you can plug that data table here and the necessary field that you are going to use, right? So in my case, I'm only using this standard time of day, but you can actually customize this whatever the way you want, right? Plus, if you look at the time, it's currently 10 a.m. But let's say if you want to switch it to the night time, then maybe you can go to like 20. So you can see actually the moon has been appeared, right? But if you need the like sort of a daytime, you can see the sun has been appeared, right? And actually this is following the 24 hours daytime scale. You can see like at the dawn it appears the sun, and at the dusk it go to other side of the horizon and it appears the moon, right? And at the 24 actually is the midnight and the moon is there, right? So that's the time of day. Plus, if you need some dynamic time of day in your level, which means your time is changing or your level day is changing, then you can enable this dynamic time of day and you can play test it again. Now you can see actually in your level the dynamic time has been added, right? Okay, but in my case I just need to showcase the features, so I will enable or disable this dynamic time of day, right? So that's the last manager that I want to discuss. Yeah, so overall those are the stuff. So this is sort of like a very complete project. We have followed industry standards. We have like a subsystem dedicated to handle each and every individual subsystems. We have managers to handle global context, and we have dedicated blueprints to handle each and every individual instance, right? So there are a lot more to discuss. So this is just introduction about the project and how you can migrate it into your own project and how to configure it to get start along with it, right? Okay, so the next tutorial, let's discuss more of Combat AI system, and I'll see you there. Thank you.